everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel.
DanMachi, is it wrong for a mafia boss to go to the dungeon? Chapter 105 to 113. Chapter 105, minus 2193 words the morning after Reborn's hellish training session. There's way too many of them. Suna and the others stood near the entrance of Hearth Manor, staring blankly at the massive crowd gathered outside the gates. Over 50 people were waiting in line. Their goal was the recruitment interviews for the newly reformed Hestia Familia. After winning the war game, they had aggressively advertised their recruitment drive through the guild and at Hestia's workplace. I never actually thought this many people would show up. Lily's prediction had been spot on, and the sheer turnout left Suna completely stunned. We finally escaped the poverty tier. We did it. It's been 3 long months since I founded this familia. It feels like a lifetime. I guess I've finally repaid my debt to them. Having been a desperately poor, minor familia for so long, Belle and Hestia were practically in tears of joy. While there was no guarantee the familia would stabilize perfectly, Suna was certain they would be fine barring any major catastrophes. Believing he had finally paid them back for taking him in, Suna smiled warmly at the two of them. Tsunayoshi-sama. Is something wrong? Ah, no. I was just thinking it's great that you guys are finally breaking out of poverty. Seeing Suna watch the tearfully rejoicing duo with an overly emotional gaze, Lily and Well felt a twinge of suspicion. Realizing he was about to expose the fact that he had risked his life diving to the 59th floor just to earn money for them, Suna frantically waved his hands and deflected the question. So what's the plan? Are you gonna let all of them join? I'll interview them one by one to determine their character. It will take time, but a god is perfectly suited to ensure no troublemakers slip into the familia. We can see right through the lies of children, after all. I know a much faster way. I'll fight every single one of them. That'll separate the trash from the treasure. You just want an excuse to beat people up. Please, I beg of you, stop. You'll scare away all the recruits we finally managed to gather. Reborn drew his beloved gun with a deeply sinister smirk. It was blatantly obvious he prioritized his own entertainment over the Hestia Familia's future. Suna immediately yelled a retort. Knowing full well that if Reborn fought them, a mountain of traumatized victims, just like Belle, would be mass-produced, Hestia frantically intervened to stop him. Relax, I'll only fight the men. I don't mind inflicting enough pain on a guy to make him wish for death, but I can't do something like that to a woman. Problem solved, right? That has absolutely nothing to do with gender. Stop trying to solve everything with barbaric violence. Met with Hestia's fierce refusal, Reborn clicked his tongue in annoyance but reluctantly tucked his gun away. Scanning the crowd, Suna spotted 2 familiar faces, Daphne and Cassandra. He walked down the front steps to greet them. You guys came too. Hello. Like the other adventurers, they had come to interview for the most rapidly rising familia in Rio. Moreover, unlike Apollo, Hestia was known for being a decent and upstanding goddess. Oh right. I forgot to tell you something. What is it? My plans to return to my homeland got delayed. Because he hadn't seen them since the war game ended, Suna took the opportunity to inform them that his departure from Rio had been postponed. Then, does that mean Tsunayoshi-san is staying with the Hestia Familia? Though I'll still have to go back eventually. I'm so happy for you, Daphne-chan. What are you talking about? Cassandra, who had assumed she would never get to be in the same familia as Suna's admirer, genuinely congratulated her friend. Daphne instantly turned bright red and snapped back defensively. Why, you're in the exact same boat, aren't you? Cassandra was rendered completely speechless, her face flushing as she began fidgeting nervously. Suna tilted his head, completely oblivious to the meaning behind Daphne's counterattack. In truth, Cassandra had developed deep feelings for Belle. Before the official recruitment interviews, she had tracked down her favorite pillow, leading her and Daphne straight to Hearth Manor. Belle had answered the door and uniquely among everyone she had ever met, immediately and unconditionally believed her prophecy. For Cassandra, who had spent her life having her visions dismissed as ravings, it was an instant knockout blow to her heart. As a side note, Suna was also aware of Cassandra's prophetic abilities from the war game, but the sheer shock of discovering his supposed ally was actually a traitor had entirely overshadowed it at the time. Anyway. You haven't forgotten our promise to get tea, right? Yeah, I remember. When did you want to go? How about tomorrow? Tea then, let's meet in front of Babel at noon tomorrow. Does that work? Tomorrow at noon. Why yes. With her heart hammering against her ribs like a war drum, Daphne somehow managed to secure her date with Suna. She sighed internally in sheer triumph. All right, I suppose it's time to begin the interviews. Checking the time, Hestia officially kicked off the recruitment process. Suna nodded to the girls and headed back toward the manor entrance. And then, it happened. Hestia Samaya. The heavy front doors of the manor were thrown violently open. Mikoto stood there, hyperventilating in a sheer panic, clutching a single piece of parchment in her trembling hand. What's wrong, Mikoto-kun? I in the luggage. I found a contract for a 200 million Valis debt. 100 million. As Mikoto held the document high and shrieked the amount, Hestia choked on her spit. Lily, Welf, and the entire crowd of applicants froze dead in their tracks, entirely petrified. Don't tell me. Seeing the contents of the contract Mikoto was waving around, Belle instantly looked down at the Hestia knife sheathed at his waist. Engraved directly into the blade was the official crest of Orario's absolute greatest smithing faction, the Hephaestus Familia. He instantly deduced that the 200 million Valis debt was the price for the very knife he carried. Overwhelmed by the sheer, crushing magnitude of the revelation, Belle's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed, out cold. Belle-sama. Lily rushed to Belle's side, shaking him violently, but he showed zero signs of waking up. No way. After I went all the way down on that expedition. Get a grip, Suna. Tsunayoshi-kun. Suna, while retaining his consciousness, dropped directly to his knees, his soul visibly leaving his body. He had literally risked his life diving into the 59th floor to build a safety net for the Familia, only to discover they were buried beneath a monstrous 200 million Valis debt. His entire struggle had been rendered mathematically insignificant in a matter of seconds. Hearing the astronomical sum, the massive line of applicants immediately broke ranks, and fled into the city without a backward glance. We're leaving, Cassandra. Daphne-chan. Daphne wanted nothing more than to live under the same roof as Suna, but even her massive crush couldn't justify joining a familia strapped with a 200 million Valis bomb. Grabbing Cassandra by the hand, she dragged her away from Hearth Manor at top speed. After every single applicant had fled, Hestia confessed that the debt was incurred when she begged Hephaestus to forge Belle's knife, and that she had sworn to pay it back entirely on her own. With the truth out in the open, the Familia gathered to discuss their new direction. I thought this is a clean, upstanding Familia, but it turns out it was a complete sweatshop, Reborn muttered. Don't use such scandalous terms. My Familia is not a black company. Reborn-sama is entirely correct. In what world is a Familia with a 200 million Valis debt considered upstanding? Hestia raged at the accusation, but Lily vehemently backed up Reborn's assessment. Lily had previously belonged to the Soma Familia, an undeniably black familia where the deity was completely apathetic, and the executives were corrupt, driven mad by divine wine. But even they didn't have a 200 million Valis debt. Even if Hestia's relationship with her dependents was healthy, classifying a familia with that kind of crushing liability as white was a massive stretch. Furthermore, Tsunayoshi-sama risked his life diving to the 59th floor for us, and this completely invalidates his efforts. I am truly, deeply sorry about that, Tsunayoshi-kun. I had absolutely no idea you were trying to support the familia's finances, and I kept the debt a secret from you. It's fine now. Traumatized by the revelation, Suna had accidentally leaked the true reason behind his deep floor expedition. Realizing his intentions, Hestia, unable to lie as a god, demanded the truth. When she heard he had fought to the death just for the Familia, Hestia had turned deathly pale, and immediately prostrated herself before him at lightning speed. Still, to think Sawadadano descended to the 59th floor alongside the Loki Familia. Mikoto, who hadn't known White Suna was absent during the expedition, was stunned. It also finally explained why Suna hadn't been with Belle's party when they executed the pass parade against them. Well, what's done is done. Let me handle this. Do you have a plan, Reborn-sama? We hit the casino and bet it all on one spin. Are you planning on relying on gambling? Wait, you're an infant, you shouldn't even be thinking about casinos. Reborn spoke with absolute confidence. Lily's eyes had sparkled with hope for a brief second, only to realize his grand plan was high-stakes gambling, prompting her to shriek in outrage. Then Suna, go take a quick lap around the deep floors. Stop saying that like you're asking me to run to the corner store for water. If you just harvest magic stones and drop items from deep floor monsters, we'll make a killing. Plus, you'll get some excellent training out of it. It's killing two birds with one stone. There is no way I'm letting him go down there alone. No matter how insanely powerful Tsuna was, Hestia adamantly refused to let him dive into the abyssal deep floors solo. I'm really sorry I hid the debt from you guys, but I promise I won't cause any trouble for my dependents. Kami-sama, you took on this massive debt just to give me this knife, didn't you? Belle, who had been unconscious on the floor, finally stirred and slowly sat up. Please don't let it weigh on you, Belle-kun. This is something I did selfishly. Kami-sama. Let's pay it back together. Even if Hestia had acted independently, she had done it out of pure love to forge him a weapon. Knowing that, Belle couldn't possibly force her to shoulder the burden alone. I'll pay back the money, no matter how many years it takes. So, Belle-kun, everyone. I just ask for your support so I don't collapse under the weight. Understanding Belle's feelings, Hestia offered a compromise. I'm sorry for being a goddess buried in debt, but will you stay with me? Of course it is. When our goddess puts it like that, us dependents can't exactly refuse, can we? Foo-foo, that's right. Geez, just promise never to do something like this again. Belle accepted without hesitation. Welf, Mikoto, and Lily all smiled and nodded their agreement. Now then, let us review our current status and strategy. Thanks to Tsunayoshi-sama's expedition and the mandatory quest from the Ganesha Familia, our immediate living expenses are covered. However, the guild will likely extract several million valis a year in taxes, so we must build our reserves. So our Familia's primary activities will center heavily around dungeon exploration, Mikoto deduced. To increase our exploration efficiency, strengthening the Familia members is our most pressing issue, Welf added, considering their next move. Strengthening the members, huh? Oh crap. Hearing Welf's words, a terrifying, predatory smirk spread across Reborn's face. Feeling a violent chill run down his spine, Suna immediately tried to bolt. I'll take care of that. Before they could even blink, a thick rope shot out, binding Suna, Belle, and Welf tightly together, completely immobilizing them. You guys are letting me stay here, after all. In exchange, I'm going to forge you into shape. That way you can dive deeper into the dungeon and earn way more money, right? Hi-ee. Having secured the perfect, unassailable excuse to train them, Reborn smiled brightly. Belle took one look at that smile, and let out a horrified scream. All right, let's go, you three. Training starts now. Hey, wait. I never said I wanted to do this. Reborn effortlessly dragged the three bound boys toward the underground training facility. Welf tried to resist, but he was completely helpless against Reborn's absurd strength, and was dragged screaming into the abyss alongside them. Needless to say, another unfortunate soul was added to the growing list of Reborn's traumatized victims that day. Support this fanfic by leaving positive review, comments, and power stones. For advanced chapters, visit patreon.com/negative translations. Chapter 106. Chapter 106, Misunderstanding 16:08 words. The day after the recruitment interview disaster. It should be almost time. As promised, Suna stood in front of Babel, waiting for Daphne to arrive. Sorry to keep you waiting. Daphne finally arrived 5 minutes before their agreed-upon time. However, she wasn't wearing her usual adventuring gear. Instead, she wore a soft, elegant pink dress. Delicate lace lined the bodice down to her waist, and the fluffy, flared skirt swayed gracefully with her every step. A light beige cardigan was draped over her shoulders, its slightly oversized silhouette emphasizing her slender frame. A modest gold double necklace rested against her collarbone, and a thin silver bracelet sparkled on her left wrist. Clutching a white chain bag, she looked radiant, a stunning, eye-catching beauty that seemed to melt perfectly into the late afternoon sun. Seeing Daphne in casual clothes for the first time, Suna couldn't help but stare. What is it? If you have something to say, just say it. It's just my first time seeing you in normal clothes, so I ended up staring. If you're just flattering me, you can stop. It's not flattery. I really think it suits you. Told point blank that the outfit suited her, Daphne's face flushed crimson, and her usual fiery demeanor completely melted away. Because of her strong-willed personality, she had never been this intimate with a boy before. Being complimented by the first boy she had ever harbored genuine feelings for was enough to make her cheeks burn, and her heart race. There's a cafe I frequent, follow me. Taking the lead to hide her blush, Daphne guided Suna through the bustling streets. A 20-minute walk later, they arrived at her favorite cafe, and took their seats across from one another. Don't hold back. Order whatever you want. I can't exactly make a member of a familia drowning in a 200 million valis debt pay for my meal, can I? Besides, this is supposed to be my way of thanking you. And don't worry, I've saved up enough living expenses for emergencies. Thanks. Deciding to accept her offer, Suna scanned the menu and ordered whatever caught his eye. I'm really sorry about yesterday. You came all the way out for the interview, only for it to end like that. You don't need to apologize. From how things looked, Hestia-sama probably took on that debt on her own, and kept quiet about it so she wouldn't burden the rest of you, right? Once their drinks arrived, Suna immediately bowed his head to apologize for the recruitment fiasco. Having accurately deduced the Hestia familia's internal situation from their reactions yesterday, Daphne didn't blame him at all. Besides, Mayake-sama reached out and invited Cassandra and me to join his familia, so everything worked out fine. Mayake-sama's familia has a massive debt of their own, but it's still significantly better than your situation. So Mayake-sama's familia is in debt too. Surprised to learn of their financial struggles, Suna suddenly understood why Naza was his only dependent, and why their headquarters was so small. What about everyone else? Some were scouted by other familias like us, some are still looking for a place to transfer, and some have just hit rock bottom, I suppose. Knowing that some of the former Apollo familia members were left destitute sent a heavy wave of guilt washing over Tsuna, casting a dark shadow over his expression. I told you, it's not your fault. If we're pointing fingers, it's our fault for picking a fight with you guys in the first place. Besides, the moment we decided to become adventurers in Ororio, we had to be prepared for things like this. Daphne stated the harsh reality matter-of-factly, but Suna still didn't look entirely convinced. Come to think of it, what happened to the people who were fiercely loyal to Apollo? Knowing how devoted some of the members were, Suna found it hard to believe they would just quietly transfer to another god's faction. They shook off the guild's restraints and chased after Apollo-sama. Why would the guild try to stop them from leaving the city? Because if adventurers leave the city, the profits generated from the dungeon will drop. On top of that, if high-level adventurers or people with rare magic and skills cross over to another nation, they could become a potential military threat to Ororio. That's why the city generally does everything it can to keep adventurers from leaving. Oh, that makes sense. Listening to Daphne's explanation, a chilling realization struck Suna. He was violently reminded that a mafia scientist from his world was hiding somewhere out there, spreading the technology of dying will flames to foreign nations. It was only a matter of time before those nations marched on Rio. Then there's Luan. Miyake-sama offered him a spot too, but he actually turned it down. You mean the Paolum? He flat out refused, saying there was no way he'd stoop to joining a weak, debt-ridden familia. Which is hilarious, considering no other familia is going to take him in. Because even though he's incredibly weak, he constantly threw his weight around and acted like a big shot just because he was in the Apollo familia. His reputation among the other factions is absolute garbage. Yet, he still refuses to swallow his pride. It's a shame, especially since you went out of your way to clear his name during the war game. That wasn't me, that was Lily. During the siege war, Luan had allegedly betrayed his familia, but the general public firmly believed that Suna had used an illusion to disguise himself as the Paolum. While there was a brief window where the real Luan and the disguised Lily were in the same area, the magical broadcasts had been entirely focused on Belle's duel with Hyacinthos, so no one had actually witnessed the truth. Speaking of which, about that elf who helped you out during the war game. What about her? Taking a delicate bite of her food, Daphne abruptly shifted the topic to Rio. Suna immediately broke out in a cold sweat, terrified that she had figured out Rio was actually Gale. Exactly what kind of relationship do you have with her? Although her face had been concealed by a scarf, it was practically a universal law that all elves were beautiful. Judging the elf to be a massive potential obstacle to her romance, Daphne narrowed her eyes, subtly probing Suna for information on her newly discovered rival. We're just friends. Are you sure about that? Why yeah. Then what familia does she belong to? Even for an adventurer from outside the city, someone capable of taking on 50 people single-handedly was exceedingly rare. Daphne had tried digging into the mysterious elf's background after the war game, but came up completely empty-handed. I can't really say. Because she said she doesn't want to stand out. So she has complicated circumstances. Why you could say that? Judging by Tsuna's evasive answers, Daphne decided to drop the interrogation. However, knowing that Suna shared a deep, private secret with another woman left a distinctly bitter taste in her mouth. Just then, their conversation was interrupted. Thank you for waiting. Here is the exclusive couple's parfait. Excuse me. A waiter smoothly placed a massive, extravagantly decorated parfait right in the center of their table. Having ordered nothing of the sort, they stared at the massive dessert in utter bewilderment. The customer over there said it was for the two of you. The waiter gestured discreetly toward the back of the cafe. Following his gaze, Suna and Daphne spotted a girl wearing a ridiculously oversized hat and dark sunglasses in a painfully obvious disguise. It was Cassandra. Realizing they were staring right at her, she panicked and frantically hid her face behind a menu. See Cassandra. Does she think we're actually dating? Daphne immediately realized that her friend was trying to aggressively wingman for her. Her face erupted in flames. Suna, simultaneously realizing Cassandra thought they were a couple, fell into an identical state of panicked embarrassment. Knowing that Daphne was going on a date, Cassandra had secretly tailed them through the city. Wanting to wingman for her best friend's romance, she had anonymously ordered the couple's parfait for their table. So those two really are. They have to be, right? They're eating the couple's parfait. Plus, look at how dressed up she is. Hearing the whispers from the surrounding tables, Daphne deeply regretted dressing up so much. One by one, every customer in the cafe turned their attention toward Suna and Daphne. We're eating it. We can't just send it back while everyone is staring at us. That's true. Lacking the courage to reject the parfait under the intense scrutiny of the entire cafe, the two of them surrendered to their fate and awkwardly picked up their spoons. Look at them, they're so tense. They must have just started dating. Damn it. Stop showing off. And I can't even get a single date. The cafe instantly divided into two distinct factions, women swooning over the awkwardly adorable new couple, and single men weeping tears of profound, bitter jealousy. Officially certified as a couple by the court of public opinion, Suna was so embarrassed he focused entirely on shoveling the dessert into his mouth as fast as physically possible. Cassandra, you are so dead when I get back. Support this fanfic by leaving positive review, comments, and power stones. For advanced chapters, visit patreon.com/negative translations. Chapter 107, Chapter 107, Pleasure Boat 1358 words. The utterly disastrous canal cruise finally ended, and Suna and Daphne were at long last freed from their aquatic prison of humiliation. I am really sorry. Cassandra completely overdid it. It's fine. I don't really mind. I'm going to give her a very, very stern talking to later. Hi. A prominent vein popped on Daphne's forehead as she clenched her right fist with terrifying intensity. Seeing her exude such a murderous aura, Suna let out a pathetic shriek. Knowing full well she was about to face Daphne's wrath, Cassandra had wisely chosen to slip out of the cafe and vanish while they were distracted by the parfait. Do you have any plans after this? Not really. Why? Since we're already out, do you want to keep going? Originally, the plan was just to get tea. But deciding it would be a waste to end the date so early, Daphne twirled a strand of hair around her finger and invited him to stay longer. Don't get the wrong idea. I just thought it would be a good idea to hang out more, so we can build a friendly relationship between our familias. Sure, sounds good to me. Feeling guilty for inviting him without a solid reason, Daphne hurriedly slapped together a diplomatic excuse, just like she had when asking him out for tea. However, Suna agreed so effortlessly she let out a sound of pure surprise. So, where are we going? Oh, right. How about a canal cruise? A canal cruise? You can take a boat ride through the waterways and see all sorts of places in Rio. What do you think? That sounds like fun. Let's do it. Thank goodness. It was an idea she had blurted out in a panic, but seeing Suna smile and agree so readily made Daphne sigh in relief. Following Daphne's lead, they made their way to the docks. Boarding a small wooden gondola, Suna and Daphne sat shoulder to shoulder on the passenger bench alongside a handful of other tourists. Alrighty, is everyone securely seated? It's going to be a short trip, but our sightseeing cruise is officially departing. After the guide finished her checks, the oarsmen at the front and rear pushed off the dock, and the gondola glided smoothly down the canal. I'll be your guide for today. My name is Enna, and I'm from the Sobek Familia. You've never heard of us? Yep, figured as much. We're the familia that got way too cocky a long time ago, teamed up with Setsama and Osiris-sama, picked a fight with the absolute monster squads known as Zeus and Hera, and got completely annihilated in a faction war. So yeah, you can just think of us as a washed-up, bottom-tier faction. Did she really just weave a traumatically depressing backstory into her casual introduction? Suna stared at Enna in shock as she cheerfully delivered her heavy, self-deprecating lore with a breezy customer service smile. But hey, because anything can happen, an adventurer like me is here to protect you all. This is Rio, after all. You never know what's lurking around the corner. Anyway, enough chatting, let's get back to work. With that, Enna began brightly narrating the history of the various tourist attractions they drifted past. Wow, Rio really has a lot of amazing places, doesn't it? You really did just get to the city recently, didn't you? And ever since I got here, I've pretty much spent all my time diving into the dungeon for cash. Ever since arriving in this world, Suna had worked himself to the bone to fix the Hestia Familia's abysmal financial situation. He hadn't had a single moment to relax and actually look around the city. So I've never actually had the free time to just go sightseeing with someone like this. Looking back, his life in Rio had been non-stop chaos. Between being obsessively hunted by Ace, fighting Alan and the Gulliver brothers, diving to the 59th floor, the war game, and investigating the Grand Casino, he hadn't had a single second to catch his breath. Is that so? What's wrong, Daphne? You're grinning. Did something good happen? And no way. I am absolutely not grinning. Called out for her shifting expression, Daphne frantically averted her eyes. Learning she was the very first person Suna had ever gone sightseeing with filled her with such intense, bubbling joy she hadn't been able to keep her lips from curving upward. What the hell am I doing? I can't be getting this happy over something so trivial. Daphne slapped both hands against her burning cheeks, mentally scolding herself to regain her composure. And then, it happened. Without warning, a massive, grotesque fish erupted from the water, launching itself high into the air directly toward the gondola. Under normal circumstances, Daphne would have sensed its approach instantly, but because she was entirely distracted by her own embarrassment, she failed to notice the monster's intent. The creature was a raider fish. While the canals were completely separate from the dungeon, monsters that managed to escape and breed in the sewers occasionally breached the surface. Anna's earlier warning hadn't been a joke, it was precisely for moments like this that an adventurer rode along. The raider fish unhinged its massive jaws, hurtling straight toward Daphne to swallow her whole. X-laser. Before the monster could even cast a shadow over her, a concentrated beam of brilliant orange light pierced straight through its core. The raider fish was instantly incinerated into ash midair. The other passengers on the boat, along with the tourists watching from the canal banks, were left with their jaws hanging open in stunned silence. Are you okay, Daphne? Why yeah, but why? Daphne was completely bewildered. There was an active adventurer on the boat whose literal job was to handle situations like this. She couldn't understand why Suna had intervened. My body just moved on its own. I wanted to protect you. Why, you idiot? You can't just say things like that in public. Suna had simply stated the honest truth without a second thought, but the devastating romantic impact of his words caused Daphne's face to violently erupt into flames as she shrieked at him. We had a sudden monster attack, but thanks to the power of love, this boyfriend awakened his true strength and effortlessly eradicated the threat. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a massive round of applause to bless this wonderful couple. Prompted by Anna's enthusiastic announcement, the surrounding passengers and onlookers erupted into cheers and applause. Being publicly declared a boyfriend caused Suna to blush furiously, the shock instantly snapping him out of hyper-dying will mode. Daphne was equally devastated, her face burning as she buried her head in her hands, unable to look anyone in the eye. So when are you two planning the wedding? We are not getting married. And for the record, we aren't even dating. Ah, you don't need to hide your embarrassment. We all know the truth. You wanted to catch her attention, so you made that grand speech during the war game, right? And the moment you claimed victory, you finally made the Loris Fuga yours. That's completely wrong. Anna wildly misinterpreted the events of the siege war, assuming Suna had deliberately sparked a rebellion to free Daphne from Apollo's grasp just to claim her for himself. Suna frantically denied the absurd narrative, his face as red as a tomato. All right, everyone, due to unforeseen circumstances, we will now be changing our itinerary to host these two lovebirds' wedding ceremony. Give me a break. Somebody save me. Anna completely abandoned her actual job to spontaneously ordain a wedding. Suna desperately shouted retorts, while Daphne, her face and ears burning with agonizing humiliation, could do nothing but pray to the gods for the boat ride to end. For the remainder of the tour, the two of them were trapped on the water, ruthlessly teased by Anna and subjected to a relentless barrage of public shame. Support this fanfic by leaving positive review, comments, and power stones. For advanced chapters, visit patreon.com/negative translations Chapter 108. Chapter 108. Carnage 1640 words. The utterly disastrous canal cruise finally ended, and Suna and Daphne were at long last freed from their aquatic prison of humiliation. I am sorry. I ended up doing something unnecessary and made things weird. It's fine. You don't need to apologize. Suna bowed his head guiltily, apologizing for obliterating the raider fish and inadvertently turning Daphne into a public spectacle. However, knowing he had moved solely on his instinct to protect her, Daphne couldn't bring herself to be angry. Besides, you looked really cool. Did you say something? And nothing at all. Daphne had muttered the words so quietly they were barely a whisper, but when Suna caught it, she immediately snapped at him to hide her embarrassment. Anyway. Thank you for saving me back there. Suna. Daphne turned to him and offered her genuine gratitude. Seeing the normally fierce and combative girl act so incredibly meek and vulnerable made Suna's heart skip a beat. Come to think of it. Up until this moment, Daphne had firmly believed that Suna was a rearguard specialist who relied entirely on illusions and healing magic. But after witnessing the technical precision required to instantly incinerate a mid-air raider fish's core with a single beam, she was forced to drastically re-evaluate him. If my eyes aren't deceiving me. While she wasn't on the level of someone like Finn, Daphne possessed a remarkably sharp tactical mind, and had survived her fair share of deadly battles. Putting the pieces together, a shocking realization hit her: Suna might actually be stronger than Belle. He might even be stronger than that monstrous elf who had helped them during the war game. So where to next? Just who exactly are you? I honestly thought you were just a dedicated backline supporter. But seeing you instantly vaporize that raider fish just now proved me wrong. You're stronger than Belle Cranel, aren't you? That is. I knew it. Suna's panicked hesitation was all the confirmation Daphne needed. Her deduction was spot on. Why did you go out of your way to pull a stunt like that during the war game? No matter how strong Suna was, the Hestia Familia had been at a massive disadvantage. Daphne simply couldn't comprehend why he would choose to hide his overwhelming combat power and gamble everything on the risky strategy of inciting a rebellion. Of course, if Suna had fought seriously, he could have effortlessly dismantled the entire Apollo Familia by himself. But even Daphne's sharp intuition couldn't predict that he was currently sitting at a level far surpassing a first-tier adventurer. That fight belonged to Belle. Even if I told him I'd fight, I knew he would never step down. Besides, at the time, I thought I was going to be returning to my homeland right after the war game ended. I stayed behind the scenes so that everyone would be capable of fighting and surviving without my power after I left. Though if things really went south, I was prepared to step in. I understand your reasoning, but are you really okay with that? That was the perfect opportunity to carve your name into Aurario's history. If he was planning on leaving anyway, Daphne figured he could have at least gone out in a blaze of glory, securing eternal fame and legend. She was genuinely baffled by his lack of ambition. It's true that my dying will makes me a little better at fighting, but I have no intention of using it as a weapon to dictate how I live the rest of my life. I don't need massive wealth, status, or fame. As long as I can find a small, quiet happiness that makes me smile, that's all I really need. You don't care about status or fame. Then why did you even become an adventurer in the first place? To repay a debt, I guess. Repay a debt? A lot of things happened, and I ended up collapsing right in front of their old headquarters. Belle and Hestia took me in, and let me join their familia. But, well, our familia was incredibly poor back then. I figured if I became an adventurer and started earning money, I could make their lives a little easier. Considering they were secretly sitting on a 200 million Valis debt, I'm not entirely sure if getting picked up by them makes you lucky or cursed. They had given the homeless Suna a place to belong, but doing so meant dragging him into a financial black hole. Daphne honestly couldn't decide if his fate was a blessing or a tragedy. Hey, do you really have no intention of converting to another familia? Probably not. Besides, it hasn't even been a year since I joined, so I can't undergo conversion anyway. Why do you ask? And no reason. I just thought it must be incredibly tough staying in a familia with a 200 million Valis debt, that's all. Daphne brushed off the question with a logical excuse, but deep down, a new plan had begun to form in her mind. She wanted to recruit Suna into the Mayak familia. Since she had absolutely no intention of shackling herself to a 200 million Valis debt, the only way she could stay by Tsuna's side was to bring him over to her side. It was impossible right now, but once his 1-year waiting period was up, she could make her move and achieve her goal. Were you actually worrying about me? What if I was? Is that a crime? You're really kind, Daphne. Struck by his sudden, gentle smile and sincere praise, Daphne's face burned brilliantly, and her heart began hammering wildly against her ribs. Why, you'd better take responsibility for this. Responsibility? The responsibility for making me feel like this. What are you talking about? Geez, you are so incredibly dense. I'm saying. Seeing Tsuna blink in genuine, innocent confusion finally pushed Daphne past her breaking point. Blushing furiously and glaring at him with fierce determination, she steeled her resolve to confess right then and there. However, Tsunayoshi-sama. Just as Daphne opened her mouth, a trembling female voice called out Tsuna's name. Tsuna whipped his head around to find Anna standing a few feet away, her face deathly pale as she shivered uncontrollably. What exactly is your relationship with her? Don't tell me she is your... Daphne and I are just friends. Oh, thank goodness. Then there is still a chance for me. A chance to become your girlfriend, Tsunayoshi-sama. While Anna let out a massive sigh of relief at the word friends, Daphne's expression instantly went completely blank, every ounce of emotion draining from her face as she processed Anna's devastatingly bold declaration. Excuse me, who the hell is this woman? Ouch, 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 ouch. Sounding exactly like a girlfriend who had just caught her partner cheating, Daphne reached over and ruthlessly pinched Tsuna's cheek, pulling it hard. Please refrain from such violence. Seeing Tsuna in pain, Anna immediately lunged forward, grabbing Tsuna by the arm and forcefully tearing him away from Daphne's grasp. Are you all right, Tsunayoshi-sama? Why, yeah. Thank goodness. So, Tsunayoshi-sama, what exactly were you two doing? What were we doing? We were just hanging out. Daphne asked me if I wanted to get tea a while ago, so we did. She did mention you saved her during the war game, didn't she? Hearing Tsuna's explanation, all the pieces clicked together in Anna's mind. Just as Tsuna had saved her from Ted's twisted game, he had saved Daphne from Apollo's terrifying obsession. And just like her, Daphne had completely fallen for her savior. Realizing that Anna had instantly seen through her feelings, Daphne was left entirely speechless. I absolutely will not lose to you either. Even if you are an adventurer. Who the hell is this girl? Being suddenly declared a mortal enemy by a completely normal civilian she had met mere seconds ago left Daphne utterly bewildered. To me either. Despite her confusion, Daphne's sharp mind caught the odd phrasing in Anna's declaration of war, and a sense of deep unease washed over her. Tsuna. The distinct sound of groceries hitting the cobblestone echoed through the street, accompanied by a trembling, familiar voice. Tsuna turned to see Ryo standing a short distance away, her face just as deathly pale as Anna's, her entire body shaking in shock. What exactly are you doing here? Isn't she from the hostess of fertility? Wait, don't tell me. Apples and vegetables rolled across the street, but Ryo didn't even notice. The sight of the boy she loved standing intimately between two fiercely possessive women had caused her brain to completely short-circuit. Daphne didn't know her name, but she instantly recognized Ryo as one of the waitresses from the hostess of fertility. Seeing Ryo exhibit the exact same despairing, betrayed reaction as Anna, Daphne instantly realized that the elf was also madly in love with Tsuna. You've got to be kidding me. There's someone else besides that masked elf from the war game. Having assumed her only real competition was the mysterious, overpowered elf who had assisted them, Daphne clutched her head in sheer agony at the revelation of two entirely new rivals. Since Daphne didn't know that the masked elf and the waitress were actually the exact same person, she currently believed she was fighting a three-front war. Just how many women has this guy accidentally seduced? At that exact moment, Daphne realized with terrifying clarity just how agonizing, chaotic, and impossibly difficult the path to becoming Suna's girlfriend was going to be. Naturally, the situation only devolved into deeper, more explosive chaos from there. Support this fanfic by leaving positive review, comments, and power stones. For advanced chapters, visit patreon.com/negative translations. Chapter 109. Chapter 109. Compatriot 1632 words later that night, after the exhausting date with Daphne had finally concluded. Suna was down in Hearth Manor's underground training room, currently enduring his daily, merciless beating, or rather, training at the hands of Reborn. Suna was on one knee, his chest heaving as he gasped desperately for air. Standing right in front of him, looking as though he had just taken a leisurely stroll through a park, was Reborn. "Oh, there you are. I figured you guys would be down here." Hestia, having just returned from her shift at the tavern, descended the stairs into the training room. "Did I interrupt your training?" "Nah, I was just about to give him a short breather anyway." "Don't worry about it. By the way, do you happen to know where Belcoin and the others went?" "I've looked everywhere but I can't find them." Ever since the devastating 200 million Valis debt had come to light, Hestia had been working relentless overtime to pay it off. Because of this, it had become a common occurrence for Tsuna and the others to eat dinner before she returned home. If you're looking for Belle and the others, they went out chasing after Mikoto. "Mikoto-kun? What do you mean?" Right after dinner, Mikoto was acting really strange. She snuck out without saying a word to anyone. Belle got worried, so he, Lily, and Welf decided to tail her. But since someone needed to stay behind to watch the manor, Reborn, and I drew the short straws. But where in the world could she have gone? And for what reason? Suna cancelled his hyper mode and explained the situation. Hestia crossed her arms, racking her brain for any possible reason why the incredibly serious and dutiful Mikoto would sneak out into the night. She probably got herself a boyfriend from another familia, right? "I heard you guys have strict rules against excessive interference between factions. It makes sense she'd want to keep it a secret from her own people." "AA lover. Mikoto-kun. That would explain her acting so secretive, but still." Reborn casually dropped his deduction, causing Tsuna's face to flush in embarrassment. Hestia had to admit, the logic was surprisingly sound. Even if she is eventually going to return to take side, she is currently my dependent. As a fellow god, I naturally want to support her blossoming romance, but as the head of this faction, I must seriously consider if permitting this is wise. Hestia cupped her chin, groaning as she fell into deep, serious contemplation over whether she should support Mikoto's hypothetical love life. Later that night, Lily, Welf, and Mikoto all returned safely to the manor. However, for some inexplicable reason, Belle did not return with them. It wasn't until early the next morning that he finally stumbled through the front doors, looking entirely exhausted and drained. "Staying out all night having fun in the pleasure quarter, huh? Well, Belcoin, do you have anything you'd like to say for yourself?" Currently, Belle was forced into a strict siza position on the living room floor. He had been caught red-handed returning from the city's red light district. Hestia towered over him, her signature twin tails literally standing on end as a terrifying, demonic aura radiated from her body. Hestia-sama. I swear, this was all just to resolve a personal matter. Mikoto-kun, you stay out of this. Knowing full well that she was the reason Belle had ended up in the pleasure quarter in the first place, Mikoto desperately tried to throw him a lifeline. Hestia shut her down instantly, completely unwilling to listen to excuses. "Are you telling me you actually slept with a courtesan?" I didn't go there to play around, and I absolutely did not do anything like that. It's a complete misunderstanding. Then why, pray tell, did you come crawling back from the pleasure quarter first thing in the morning? Hestia wasn't the only one furious. Lily was absolutely livid, glaring at Belle with eyes so sharp they could have cut glass, radiating pure, concentrated malice. Excuse me. What is it? Hi. The moment Suna nervously raised his hand, Hestia and Lily snapped their heads toward him, their demonic glares locking onto him simultaneously. Overwhelmed by their terrifying bloodlust, Suna let out a pathetic squeak. What exactly is the pleasure quarter or a brothel? Why you've gotta be kidding me. Sawadadano. Hearing Suna's genuinely innocent, utterly clueless question, the boiling rage inside Hestia and Lily vanished in an instant, replaced entirely by profound disbelief. Welf, Mikoto, and Belle stared at him, their jaws hanging open. You seriously don't even know that? Man, you really are a no-good. As your home tutor, I guess I have to educate you. Listen closely. The pleasure quarter is wait. Why the hell does a baby know about this stuff? Welf shouted, interrupting Reborn. It's just common sense. In what world is a baby knowing about red light districts and brothels considered common sense? Unable to ignore the sheer absurdity of an infant possessing such deep, worldly knowledge, Welf furiously yelled a retort. Sawadadano, it is perfectly fine if you do not know. In fact, please, I beg of you, remain ignorant. Unable to follow Reborn and Welf's chaotic exchange, Suna looked around in confusion. Mikoto placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and spoke with the solemn gravity of a dying warrior. Supporter-kun, we are aborting this interrogation immediately. If we continue, it will negatively impact Tsunayoshi-kun's pure soul. Why yes, we have no other choice. Thank the gods. Truthfully, Hestia and Lily had a mountain of things they wanted to aggressively interrogate Belle about. However, realizing that Suna was far more innocent and sheltered than they had ever imagined, they couldn't risk exposing him to the gritty details. Furthermore, neither Hestia nor Lily possessed the sheer courage required to look Suna in his pure, unclouded eyes and explain the concept of a brothel to him from scratch. They were forced to completely abandon the interrogation. Belle hadn't expected his salvation to come in the form of Tsuna's utter lack of worldly knowledge, but he sighed in profound relief, thanking the heavens he had survived the firing squad. Also, Belle-kun, you are to dispose of that item immediately. And make absolutely certain Tsunayoshi-kun doesn't see it. Why yes, ma'am. Though Hestia didn't name it out loud, Lily instantly understood what she was referring to and nodded vigorously, whispering her assent. Is something wrong, you two? And nothing at all. It's just secret girl talk. Right, Supporter-kun. Why yes, exactly. It's very rude to eavesdrop on a secret conversation between maidens, Tsunayoshi-sama. Is that so? Sorry about that. Seeing them whispering so frantically, Suna thought something serious had happened and asked out of concern. Despite their painfully obvious, awkward smiles and incredibly suspicious behavior, Suna's legendary density worked against him, completely missing the fact that they were desperately hiding something from him. We somehow managed to deceive him. Relieved that Suna hadn't uncovered their secret, a wave of profound exhaustion washed over Hestia and Lily. With the interrogation formally suspended, Hestia handed Belle a temporary punishment for his actions, and the group disbanded for the morning. So what exactly were you doing out so late, Mikoto? Truthfully, I heard from Chigusadano that she saw someone who looked exactly like an old acquaintance from my hometown. Because there was no concrete proof, and because it was a personal matter regarding my homeland, I felt I couldn't drag the rest of the familia into it. Since Tsuna and Reborn had stayed behind to guard the manor yesterday, they were entirely out of the loop. Mikoto quietly explained her reasons for sneaking out. Is it possible it was just someone who looked like her? This person is of high noble birth, and she is a Renard, an exceedingly rare race. The chances of it being a simple look-alike are incredibly slim. A Renard. They are a minority race found almost exclusively in my homeland in the Far East. Among the beast people, who boast many different species, Renards are the only true magic users. Because they wield a unique brand of magic distinctly different from elven magic, they are often revered in the Far East as mystic sorcerers or spellweavers. I didn't know a race like that existed. Suna thought he had learned about most of the races since arriving in Orario, but the world was vastly larger than he had realized. But why would someone of such high status be here in Rio? Normally, people in those kinds of positions aren't exactly allowed to just pack up and leave their country, right? Their retainers would never allow it. This person, her name is Haruhime Dano. For certain reasons, she was exiled from her family and subsequently went missing. And yesterday, you found out that she might be here in Rio. But judging by your expression, it doesn't look like this is going to be a happy reunion. Despite learning that her long-lost friend was in the city, Mikoto didn't look happy in the slightest. Reborn instantly saw through the gloom clouding her face. It is highly probable that Haruhime Dano is currently affiliated with the Ishtar Familia. However, I refuse to believe she joined them of her own free will. If it is within my power, I want to save her. That is my true desire. Even if our time together was fleeting, she is still a dear, precious friend to me. Feeling the sheer, desperate weight of Mikoto's resolve radiating from her words, Suna's chest tightened, filled with an indescribable, heavy empathy. Support this fanfic by leaving positive review, comments, and power stones. For advanced chapters, visit patreon.com/negative translations Chapter 110. Chapter 110, Research 1429 words the day after hearing about Haruhime from Mikoto. I wonder if he's here. Suna was currently making his way toward Twilight Manor, the grand home base of the Loki Familia. After hearing Mikoto's desperate plea to save Haruhime yesterday, Suna had racked his brain trying to figure out how he could help. He reasoned that the Loki Familia, being one of the two massive pillars of Rio, would likely have actionable intelligence on the Ishtar Familia. He could have gone to the guild, but he suspected the Loki Familia might possess their own unique, classified information. As he approached the towering gates of Twilight Manor, the two guards stationed at the entrance noticed him. Oh, Tsunayoshi-san. The two guards were a human woman and an elfman, both of whom had been part of the 59th floor expedition and had suffered from the poison worm's deadly venom. Sorry for dropping by unannounced, but is Finn around? The captain. Unfortunately, he's currently out on an assignment. Learning that Finn was absent, Suna's face fell slightly in disappointment. Did you have urgent business with the captain? Not specifically with Finn, actually. I was hoping to learn more about a faction called the Ishtar Familia. I figured the Loki Familia might know something. The female guard had asked politely, but the moment the words, Ishtar Familia, left Suna's mouth, both guards stiffened, their expressions instantly hardening into masks of pure shock. Why exactly are you looking into the Ishtar Familia? Well, a friend of mine is looking for a childhood friend from their hometown, and we heard a rumor that she might be caught up with the Ishtar Familia. Ah, so that's the situation. The female guard's initial flare of intense suspicion faded instantly. Hearing that Suna was doing this solely for the sake of a friend, she relaxed her guard. Was it bad for me to ask about them? It's just that there are some complicated circumstances. But if that's your reason, it's fine. Please come inside. Are you sure it's okay to let me in without Finn's permission? You saved our lives by curing that poison, Tsunayoshi-san. We owe you a debt. I'm certain the captain would say the exact same thing if he were here. Despite Finn's absence, the two guards cheerfully opened the heavy gates, welcoming Suna inside without a moment's hesitation. There's barely anyone here. Are they out investigating Evolus? Stepping into the compound, Suna immediately noticed how deserted it was. For a faction that boasted hundreds of members, the quiet was unnatural. He deduced that Finn and the core executives must be out conducting a massive raid or investigation against the remnants of Evolus. The guards led him to the Familia's expansive archives. The male guard scanned the shelves and pulled out a thick ledger. This contains our intelligence on the Ishtar Familia. The guard laid the book on a reading table and flipped through the pages until he reached the designated section. It detailed everything the Loki Familia currently knew about Ishtar's faction. I don't see the name Haruhime anywhere. Suna carefully scanned the comprehensive list of known Ishtar Familia members, but the name Haruhime was entirely absent. Excuse me, have you ever heard of a Renard named Haruheim being part of their familia? Haruheim. A Renard. No luck, huh? Suna asked the guards directly, but judging by their confused expressions, neither of them had any idea what he was talking about. At this rate, he wasn't going to find any clues leading to Haruheim. Wait a second. I remember Mikoto saying. Just as he was about to give up, a vital piece of information sparked in his memory. What about someone who uses incredibly rare magic? Have you heard any rumors about that? Suna remembered Mikoto explaining that Renards wielded a unique brand of magic entirely distinct from elves. He figured that if he shifted his inquiry toward anomalous magic, it might trigger a lead. The two guards immediately exchanged a meaningful, loaded glance. Do you know something? Well, we do know something. Actually, 9 times out of 10, it's exactly what you're looking for. Are we really allowed to just hand out this information? Even though Tsuna was their savior, the guards hesitated, unsure if they had the authority to disclose classified tactical data without the captain's approval. However, after a brief moment of silent deliberation, they decided they could trust Tsuna and chose to speak. Actually, this happened a short while ago when we were deployed to Melon. It's a bustling port city located just outside Ororio. For some reason, the Ishtar Familia was operating there, and they provoked a skirmish with us. During that battle, something completely inexplicable happened. Inexplicable. The captain of the Ishtar Familia, Phryne Jamil alias Androctonos, somehow underwent a temporary level boost. Temporary. Our current working theory is that the Ishtar Familia is hiding an adventurer possessing a hyperrare spell or skill capable of temporarily forcing a rank up. However, we haven't been able to confirm if the caster is a Renard. Thank you, both of you. While they couldn't definitively prove the caster was Haruheim, confirming the existence of a rare magic user perfectly aligned with Mikoto's information. Tsuna smiled, grateful for the crucial intel. Please promise you won't breathe a word of this to anyone else. If a baseless rumor starts spreading, the Ishtar Familia might target you. Are they really that dangerous? The Ishtar Familia, I mean. Actually, there are strong suspicions that the Ishtar Familia is secretly colluding with Evolus in the shadows. The female guard leaned in and delivered the bombshell in a hushed whisper, causing Tsuna to let out a cry of sheer shock. So that's why. Tsuna finally understood why the guards had completely frozen up the moment he uttered the Ishtar Familia's name at the gate. Of course, we don't have definitive proof yet. But even putting their potential ties to Evolus aside, picking a fight with the Ishtar Familia is practically suicide. What do you mean? Look at this. As the female guard stressed the danger, the male guard unrolled a massive map of Ororio across the table. This entire area belongs to the Ishtar Familia. All of this. The male guard traced his finger in a wide, sweeping circle, encompassing a massive chunk of the southeastern sector. Suna's eyes widened in disbelief at the sheer scale of their territory. The Ishtar Familia rules over the pleasure quarter in the southeastern part of the city. That district plays a massive role in Orario's economy, which means even the guild can't just forcefully intervene in their affairs. Hey, what exactly is the pleasure quarter? I asked my familia about it yesterday, but everyone refused to tell me. Are you serious? Realizing that Suna was genuinely, innocently completely ignorant of what a red light district was, the two guards' jaws dropped. If you don't know, it's better that you stay ignorant. Anyway, it's a district managed entirely by the Ishtar Familia, and it's one of the core pillars of Orario's entire economy. That's why no one can make a careless move against them. Exactly. What's more, there are countless people in the city who devoutly worship Ishtar-sama as the goddess of beauty. If you make an enemy of her familia, you make an enemy of half the city. We somehow managed to dodge the question. By aggressively pivoting back to the sheer political and economic terror of the Ishtar Familia, the guards managed to prevent Suna from digging deeper into the actual nature of the pleasure quarter. They sighed in profound relief, having successfully protected his pure soul. So as much as we feel for your friend, Tsunayoshi-san, it would really be best if you didn't get involved with the Ishtar familia. The female guard offered a grave, earnest warning, but Suna couldn't bring himself to agree. Having acquired the information he needed, albeit wrapped in deeply concerning layers of danger, Suna thanked the guards and left Twilight Manor. What am I going to do? Not only were they a massive, untouchable faction deeply entrenched in the city's politics, but they might also be tied to the murderous remnants of Evolus. Rushing in blindly was out of the question. With a heavy heart and a clouded expression, Suna slowly made his way back to Hearth Manor. Support this fanfic by leaving positive review, comments, and power stones. For advanced chapters, Patreon.com/negative translations Chapter 111, Chapter 111, Compatriot 1405 words Upon returning from Twilight Manor, Suna immediately told Mikoto what he and Reborn had learned about the Ishtar familia. I know there's a rumor about someone using rare magic, but they couldn't confirm if it was the Haruheim you're looking for, Suna explained. I see. Suna shared the intel from the Loki familia over dinner. Mikoto hadn't expected him to go directly to the city's largest faction just for her sake, and she couldn't hide her shock. The rest of the familia members were equally stunned, their mouths hanging wide open. What's wrong, guys? What do you mean, what's wrong? Lily shouted. Why are you casually strolling into Orario's biggest faction like it's no big deal? I just thought they might know something. To Lily, the Loki familia were existences high above the clouds. She honestly couldn't believe Suna could just drop by their headquarters, as if he were visiting a friend's house. I asked about a lot of things, but they warned us it's best not to get too involved with the Ishtar familia, Suna continued. Apparently, there are some pretty dark rumors surrounding them. Suna hated to say it, but he had to convey the danger. There was a real possibility the Ishtar familia was connected to the Evolus. Mikoto seemed to understand his intentions and didn't get angry, but she couldn't give up on Haruheim either. She cast her gaze downward, a dark expression clouding her face. The rest of the group felt a heavy weight in their chests, knowing full well how much this old friend meant to Mikoto. We get you and Haruheim are pals, Reborn chimed in, showing a rare moment of consideration. But Haruheim is supposedly highborn. If you were friends with someone like that, does that mean you used to serve her? Mikoto replied softly into the quiet room. I was orphaned at a young age. I was raised at the shrine where the gods, including Lord Takamikazuchi, resided. The shrine? Suna asked, tilting his head at the unfamiliar term. Lord Takamikazuchi and the other gods gathered children, who had nowhere else to go, and took them in at their shrine. So it was like an orphanage, Suna nodded. Chigusa and Uka are my companions, we grew up in that same shrine together. So that's how they know each other. Suna thought. He had assumed they met after coming to Orario, and was slightly surprised to learn their bond went that far back. Haruheim lived in an estate at the foot of the shrine, Mikoto explained. One day, she heard rumors about us. Unlike her wealthy upbringing, we were barely surviving day to day. She asked her father to share their food with the gods. When I learned about the girl who saved us, I went to meet her. But she wasn't allowed to leave the estate, she was always just looking up at the sky from inside. Lord Takamikazuchi couldn't bear to see her like that, so he told us, you brats, go sneak that girl out of there. Wasn't that a really bad idea? Suna asked nervously. We got caught the first time, and our battles with the patrol guards became incredibly fierce after that. I'm amazed you made it out alive. Even if it was just kids acting out, doing something like that to a noble family could easily result in execution. Suna found it a miracle that Mikoto was still breathing today. Whenever we were caught, Haruheim's father would fly into a rage, Mikoto said, a faint, nostalgic smile touching her lips. But every single time, Lord Takamikazuchi would prostrate himself on the ground and beg for forgiveness until he let us off the hook. He got away with it just by prostrating. Suna thought, a sweat drop forming on his brow. He couldn't believe they were forgiven time and time again just because a god bowed his head. We played together countless times. We ran through the fields, explored the edges of the farmlands, and played by the riverbank. And finally, Haruheim, who had never shown a smile before, genuinely laughed. I felt I was finally able to repay my debt to her. The end came so abruptly. She was kicked out of her home, right? Reborn asked. Around the same time, the shrine fell into a severe financial crisis. We had to go out and earn our daily wages, so we couldn't visit the estate anymore. When we finally managed to go back a while later, we found out Haruheim had been disowned and cast out. We searched everywhere for her, but couldn't find a single trace. We eventually came to Orario to save our shrine. We had no idea Haruheim might be here too. Having finished recounting her past, Mikoto lowered her head once more, her expression turning somber. Isn't there anything we can do? Bell asked quietly. Master Bell. Do not even entertain the thought of saving Lady Haruheim. What are you saying, Lily? Lily's ruthless words cut through the tension. Bell and Mikoto snapped their heads toward her in disbelief, while Tsuna couldn't hide his confusion at her sudden harshness. The war game just ended, Lily continued firmly. Do you intend to start another major conflict? If Haruheim was indeed in the Ishtar Familia, rescuing her meant war was unavoidable. Lily's logic was completely sound, leaving everyone unable to formulate a counterargument. Thanks to the war game, the Hestia Familia has been left completely exposed, Lily explained. Everyone who watched the match saw your magic, your attacks, your weapons, and your items. That means our entire hand has been revealed. The war game had broadcast the Hestia Familia's capabilities to all of Orario. On the flip side, they knew almost nothing about the Ishtar Familia and mathematically, they were hopelessly outmatched in combat power. It was clearer than day that challenging them now was a fool's errand. Fortunately, Master Tsuna's full capabilities remain hidden, but he does not wish for his power to be known, Lily added. If he were to use his power against a faction as massive as the Ishtar Familia, all of his secrets would be exposed to the entire city. It was well known that many worshipped Ishtar, the Familia's patron goddess. If they were a faction with strong connections unlike the Soma Familia, Tsuna's existence would become public knowledge across Orario. That was a scenario Tsuna desperately wanted to avoid. And above all else, it would place an enormous burden on Lady Hestia, Lily added, bringing up their goddess who was currently stuck working overtime. She might not realize it yet, but by forcing her way into the city's power dynamic, she has undoubtedly earned the animosity of several other gods. A short time ago, the Hestia Familia was a microscopic, unknown faction. Thanks to the war game, their name was now famous. If they picked a fight with the Ishtar Familia right on the heels of that victory, it would draw even more negative attention, dragging Hestia's reputation through the mud. Stop acting out of character. Reborn smirked, adjusting his fedora. Just admit that you're terrified of your friends getting hurt. Reborn saw right through Lily's tough act. She flinched, her eyes widening as he hit the bullseye. As a member of this familia, I agree with Lily's logic, Welf grinned, crossing his arms and showing his resolve. But if you guys have decided what you want to do, I'll help you out. I'll stick with you till the bitter end. Still, you went out of your way to play the villain, and now your cover's blown, Lilysook, Welf teased, chuckling at her flustered reaction. I don't think that at all. Master Reborn is just making things up. Lily shouted, her face flushed red as she stubbornly refused to admit the truth. Good grief. Kids these days. Reborn sighed theatrically. I don't want to hear that from you, Master Reborn. Lily was absolutely furious at being treated like a child by an actual baby. Watching their usual banter, the heavy tension finally broke, and life returned to Tsuna and the others. However, they didn't know it yet. They had no idea that the Hestia Familia was about to clash with the Ishtar Familia in a completely unexpected way. Support this fanfic by leaving positive review, comments, and power stones. For advanced chapters, Patreon.com/negative translations Chapter 112, Chapter 112, Company 1388 words the day after their strategy meeting. You met her? Suna exclaimed, his eyes wide. After dinner the previous night, Mikoto had ventured back into the pleasure quarter. Finally, she had managed to reunite with Haruheim. But she told me she didn't know anyone like me. She refused to even listen. Mikoto said, her voice trembling slightly. Why? I don't know. Being outright rejected without a single explanation, especially after finally finding her, had taken a massive toll on Mikoto. She looked far more exhausted and defeated than she had the day before. Could it be because of their connection to the Evolus? Suna figured Haruheim was intentionally pushing Mikoto away to prevent her from getting tangled up in the Ishtar Familia's dark dealings. But without concrete evidence of their ties to the Evolus, he couldn't carelessly voice his suspicions. Suna kept his mouth shut, unable to offer any comforting words. Afterward, Mikoto and Belle headed to the guild to figure out a way to save Haruheim. Because Suna had met directly with Arenas upon arriving in Orario, the guild staff always paid him too much attention. Unless it was an absolute emergency, he avoided going there, opting to stay behind at Hearth Manor instead. He spent the next hour in the underground training room with Reborn before returning to the living room. What's going on? Suna asked, stepping into the room. Did something happen? Reborn added. Belle and Mikoto had returned from the guild, and were now huddled around a single piece of paper with Hestia, Lily, and Wealth. The atmosphere was incredibly serious. When Suna and Reborn spoke, everyone turned to face them. Actually, we got a quest from the Albera Company, Hestia explained. Albera Company. Suna tilted his head, unfamiliar with the name she had just dropped. They're a massive merchant company that supports a large chunk of Orario's economy, Lily elaborated. It seems they issued this quest to establish a business relationship with the Hestia Familia, now that we're famous after the war game. What does that mean exactly? Suna asked. The loot retrieved from Orario's dungeon is so incredibly valuable that merchants across the continent would kill to get their hands on it. Because of that, merchants are desperate to build connections with prominent familias. They issue quests for the familia to procure loot, and in return, the merchant company provides financial backing for their dungeon explorations. A give-and-take relationship, Suna nodded. So what's the quest? We have to go to the pantry on the 14th floor and mine quartz, Wealth answered. The pantry. That's the place monsters go when they're hungry, right? Suna recalled. During their recent expedition to the 59th floor, Finn's group had taught Suna the basics of the dungeon. Monsters were living creatures too, which meant they eventually grew hungry. When they did, they sustained themselves by consuming a liquid secreted from crystals found within the dungeon. The area where this liquid pooled was known as the pantry. Exactly, Lily confirmed. By the way, the reward is 1 million Valis. 1 million. That much. Suna gaped at the astronomical sum. It's quite common for them to offer a reward that far exceeds the quest's actual difficulty just to earn our future favor, Lily replied coolly, completely unfazed. So are we taking it? Reborn asked, eyeing the group. Of course. You can never have too much money. Mikoto declared. I completely agree. Belle declared, his eyes burning with determination. For some reason, Belle and Mikoto were overwhelmingly enthusiastic about accepting the quest. I don't know why, but those two are completely fired up about this, Hestia sighed, crossing her arms. Personally, I don't want to get involved in relationships driven purely by profit. But since I caused everyone trouble by secretly taking on debt, I figured it's fine, if we just accept it as compensation for the quest. Though she was reluctant, her guilt overburdening her familia with debt pushed her to give them the green light. 2 days later, Suna and the others ventured into the dungeon to complete the Albera Company's quest. I still can't believe we can just solve this with money. Suna muttered. He had finally asked Belle and Mikoto why they were so fired up. 2 days ago, just as they were heading to the guild, they had run into Hermes. He had offered them advice regarding Haruheim, explaining a system called ransom, a process where one could purchase a courtesan's freedom. Learning that they needed a massive sum of 2 to 3 million valis, Belle and Mikoto resolved to earn the money as quickly as possible. That was the real reason behind their sudden surge in motivation. They reported this to the rest of the group, and everyone agreed to help. Naturally, they omitted words like courtesan to keep Tsuna's innocence intact. Hestia, however, was fully aware of the ransom system. She made a deeply displeased face when she realized Belle was trying to buy a girl, but after learning about Mikoto's past, she gave her consent. She even went out of her way to report Haruheim's situation to the Takamikazuchi familia. Coming from a completely different world, Tsuna still felt a deep sense of revulsion toward the idea of buying a person. However, he believed resolving the situation peacefully was the best possible outcome, so he fully committed to helping them earn the funds. "Hey, Tsuna. Do you know what a killing stone is?" Mikoto asked suddenly. "A killing stone? I suppose you wouldn't know. What brought this up all of a sudden?" Tsuna asked, looking back at her. "Actually, Lord Hermes mentioned he also works as a courier on the side. He told us he recently delivered an item called a killing stone to the Ishtar familia." "Did something happen with this killing stone?" "No, he just unilaterally told us that and left. I tried asking around, but no one seems to know what it is." Tsuna pondered why Hermes would intentionally drop that specific hint, but came up blank. Realizing it was pointless to dwell on it, he shifted his focus back to the quest. "Stop," Tsuna commanded softly. "What is it, Master Tsuna?" Lily asked, freezing in place. "I hear monsters. And the sound of someone approaching." Tsuna's hyper-intuition picked up the subtle presence ahead of them on the narrow path. Exactly as he warned, a party of figures clad in black robes came sprinting toward them, dragging a massive horde of monsters in their wake. A pass parade. Welf grimaced, recalling the bitter memories of the last time someone pulled that dirty trick on them. "Let's fall back to the crossroad," Belle shouted. Fighting in a tight, single-file corridor was suicide. Belle made the split-second decision to retreat to the wider intersection they had just passed. The group turned and sprinted back. But the moment they reached the crossroad dash 2 directions, they were ambushed by another pass parade from the sides. The unexpected pincer attack nearly caused Lily's mind to short-circuit. In the blink of an eye, they were completely surrounded by monsters, their escape routes completely cut off. Realizing they were backed into a corner, Belle and the others gritted their teeth and drew their weapons, ready for a desperate final stand. "Everyone, jump!" Tsuna's voice sliced through the chaos. Startled but trusting him completely, Belle and the others kicked off the ground and leaped high into the air. Lily was caught off guard, but Belle grabbed her arm and hauled her up with him. Suspended in the air alongside his friends, Tsuna summoned Natsu from his ring. In a flash, he switched the attribute of his dying will flame from sky to storm. Garuru. Natsu unleashed a deafening roar. A massive wave of storm flames blanketed the ground below, washing over the swarming monsters. The storm flame's unique trait of disintegration took immediate effect, reducing the entire horde to ash in a fraction of a second. Not a single piece of flesh remained. The black-robed figures who had orchestrated the ambush stared in absolute, stunned silence. "Looks like we were set up," Tsuna said coldly, his eyes narrowing at the attackers. Support this fanfic by leaving positive review, comments, and power stones. For advanced chapters, Patreon.com/negative translations Chapter 113, Chapter 113, Sky, Tsuna, verses 1551 words with a single roar from Natsu, the monster horde was blown away without a trace. "I won't ask why you attacked us," Tsuna said, his voice deadly calm. "But if you intend to keep fighting, I assume you're prepared for the consequences." Faced with Tsuna's ultimatum, the attackers slowly began to back away. Though their faces were hidden beneath their robes, their terror was palpable. They had just witnessed a massive horde of monsters reduced to cinders in the blink of an eye. The image of suffering that exact same fate flashed through their minds, and Suna could easily read the sheer panic radiating from them. However, if you back down now, I'll let you go. So, what will it be? Suna intentionally offered them a way out. Presented with the option to retreat unscathed, the enemy's resolve began to waver. Don't you dare lose your nerve, you idiots. A sharp, commanding woman's voice echoed through the dungeon. If he really wanted to kill us, we would have been reduced to ashes by that first attack. She's calm, Suna thought. She had perfectly seen through Suna's reluctance to kill another human. Her words acted as an anchor, completely scattering her subordinates' fear. The fact that she could remain so analytical after witnessing the display of power immediately tipped Suna off. She was the most dangerous person here, and undeniably their leader. Gururu. Guju. Suna instantly switched his flames from storm to mist. Natsu roared once more, unleashing a thick torrent of mist flames that blanketed the area. What is this? The dense forest of Sioro. The barren stone walls of the dungeon transformed in an instant, replaced by a sprawling, dense jungle. Wealth and Lily stared in utter shock at the hyperrealistic illusion. I'll throw them into chaos, Suna commanded quickly. Stick together and focus entirely on any enemies that charge you. Mikoto, keep your skill active so we don't get ambushed by straggling monsters. I'm counting on you. Ignoring Belle's frantic protests, Suna gave his brief orders and dove headfirst into the enemy formation. We must trust Master Suna. Lily decided, choosing to place her faith in the boy who had freed her from the Soma Familia. Lady Mikoto, please use your skill. Alright. Yada no Kurigarasu. Mikoto activated one of her specialized skills, Yada no Kurigarasu. It was a monster detection skill capable of locating any monster species the user had previously encountered. Concealment against it was impossible, ensuring they wouldn't fall victim to a surprise attack in the chaotic environment. Since the illusory jungle severely limited their visibility, Suna had ordered Mikoto to activate it as a safety net. The moment Mikoto's skill activated, Suna's body was engulfed in mist flames. He manipulated the illusion, perfectly replicating the black robes the enemy wore, and began his assault. What the hell are you ga? Disguised as one of their own, Suna struck with ruthless efficiency. The enemy forces fell one after another, completely incapable of mounting a defense against the sudden betrayal. Watch out! He's using an illusion to disguise himself as one of us. One of the attackers finally realized Suna's tactic and screamed a warning. But that only made things worse. Terrified of attacking their own comrades, the enemy froze. Visibility was already near zero. If they moved recklessly, paranoia would consume them, and they might end up killing their actual allies. Their only option was to hold their ground and prevent the situation from deteriorating further. To think he could cast an illusion over such a massive area. The enemy leader gritted her teeth in frustration, sweating profusely at Suna's overwhelming mastery of illusions. Suddenly, she felt a presence behind her. She readied her massive greatsword and spun around. Looking up, she saw Mikoto descending from the sky, katana drawn, aiming for a plunging strike. The leader bent her knees, coiling to jump and intercept the attack mid-air. But Mikoto violently accelerated mid-fall, closing the distance instantly. The leader hadn't anticipated such blinding speed, and reacted a fraction of a second too late. In that brief window, Mikoto snatched the heavy black robe right off her shoulders. Beneath the robe, a tall woman with dark skin and long black hair was revealed, her body enveloped in a mysterious light. This was Aisha Belkan Amazonas, a level 3 adventurer, a Berbera of the Ishtar Familia, and the warrior known as Antianira. The instant the robe was stolen, the Mikoto imposter erupted in flames, shifting her appearance to perfectly match Aisha. Before Aisha could even process what had happened, the imposter vanished back into the thick foliage. He stole my robe. And now he's disguised as me. Be careful, all of you. To think I'd be played like a fiddle. The Tsuna disguised as Aisha yelled the warning to the troops, while the real Aisha cursed herself internally for falling for the trap. Suna had masterfully manipulated their psychology. First, he made them believe he was only attacking as one of their own. Then, he disguised himself as Mikoto, baiting Aisha into thinking it was a genuine attack from his ally. By using his flames to accelerate midair, he caught her off guard and stole her robe. Finally, by memorizing her appearance, transforming into her, and using her voice to announce the new threat, he had intentionally created a scenario where her troops could no longer trust their own commander's orders. That bastard. He's a terrifyingly seasoned fighter. Witnessing how flawlessly he exploited human psychology, Aisha was forced to admit that Suna was an absolute monster in combat. Eat this. Jaya Iya. This time, Suna appeared disguised as Wealth. He swung an illusory magic sword, unleashing a massive torrent of flames upon the enemy. Already pushed to the brink of paranoia, the attackers firmly believed the roaring fire was real. The sheer shock of burning alive caused them to faint on the spot. Suna relentlessly shifted between allied and enemy appearances, effortlessly dismantling the group's cohesion. Aisha desperately racked her brain for a way to break the stalemate, fully aware that issuing orders now would only deepen the chaos and play right into Suna's hands. That's it. After a frantic moment of thought, Aisha raised her greatsword toward the sky. Come, champion of reckless valor, heroic warrior, sturdy master of arms, greedy and cruel hero. If you desire the sash of the Empress, prove it. Fill my body, pierce my body, kill my body, and prove it. My starving blade is Hippolyte. Aisha began chanting her magic. She completed the incantation without interruption, and her greatsword was instantly enveloped in a deep crimson aura. No matter how perfectly Suna could mimic a person's appearance and voice, it was impossible to replicate their unique magic. By casting her spell, Aisha indirectly proved her identity to her comrades. Realizing her intent, the remaining attackers quickly rallied around the real Aisha. All of you. Take off your robes. As her comrades gathered, Aisha issued her next command. Every single one of them tore off their black cloaks, revealing that the entire squad consisted solely of Amazonesses. Exposing their identities was a massive risk, but keeping the robes on meant Suna could easily slip into their ranks again. However, I figured you'd do that. The illusory jungle of Sioro vanished in an instant. Suna crouched before them, both hands planted firmly on the ground. The flames roaring on his ring had shifted from mist to lightning. X-Spark. Jaya Iya. A highly concentrated burst of lightning flames surged across the ground, expanding over a massive area. The clustered Amazonesses were electrocuted simultaneously, completely helpless against the high-voltage shock. You actually believed I was real. Aisha had reacted instantly, leaping high into the air to avoid the current. As she hung suspended, she stared down at Suna in absolute horror. Suna had anticipated that a fighter of Aisha's caliber would figure out a way to break his illusion. He knew she would successfully gather her allies into one tight group to confirm their identities. And he had waited for that exact moment to wipe them all out at once. Hell chaos. Aisha swung her greatsword downward in desperation. The crimson magical energy solidified into a massive, deadly blade and rocketed straight toward Suna. This was Aisha's magic, Hell Chaos, an offensive spell capable of firing a gigantic red shockwave. The magical slash scored a direct hit, engulfing Suna in a massive explosion of smoke and debris. Master Sawada. Master Suna. Bell, Welf, Mikoto, and Lily screamed as the attack connected. But 0-point breakthrough, revised. As the smoke cleared, Suna stood completely unharmed, surrounded by the swirling crimson energy. The magic rapidly condensed, shrinking down until it was entirely absorbed into his gloves. In the next instant, the sky flames on his forehead and gloves flared up with blinding intensity. Suna switched his flames from lightning back to sky. With a massive burst of propulsion, he rocketed upward, instantly appearing high above Aisha in midair. He spun vertically, bringing his heel down in a devastating axe kick that smashed directly into her right shoulder, driving her violently into the dungeon floor below. Support this fanfic by leaving positive review, comments, and power stones. For advanced chapters, Patreon.com/negative translations. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.